But, partnerships they're hard. I mean, they're hard for lots of reasons. And sometimes what seems to make sense on paper turns out not to make sense. So lots of reasons why things, may not work out. And sometimes it's amicable and everything's great. It's just like, let's just go our separate ways. Sometimes it's not. So you don't have to get into all that. But looking back, for those out there that might be thinking about taking on a partner, maybe they're solo or whatever, do you have any advice that, looking back, or maybe if you ever look for a partner again, what advice would you give to yourself? Some people say don't do it, which is fair too, but
I only say too soon because it felt like it was so much work to merge the practices together. And then it was also so much work to unwind. And it happened in what I thought was a very short period of time. Now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe it wasn't that short. It was just a lot of work. So what would I do? What would I do differently? Well, what advice do I have?
Welcome to the Founding Partner Podcast. Join your host, Jonathan Hawkins, as we explore the fascinating stories of successful law firm founders. We'll uncover their beginnings, triumph over challenges, and practice growth. Whether you aspire to launch your own firm, have an entrepreneurial spirit, or are just curious about the legal business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Founding Partner Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Hawkins. This is a podcast where I get to interview founding attorneys and hear about their journeys and lessons they've learned along the way. And I'm excited about today's guest. This is somebody I met recently. Well, actually, we sort of worked together for a minute and then didn't talk to her for a while. And then I actually met her in person. And I was like, wait a second, I know you. So anyway, really excited today. We've got Roya Vasseghi of Vasseghi Law Group. She does a couple things, but I call her maybe an employment lawyer. She can tell me I'm wrong and tell me exactly what she is, but in the Northern Virginia area. So Roya, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, about your firm.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I am an employment lawyer. So the firm is Vasseghi Law Group. We're 3 attorneys in Fairfax, Virginia. We practice in Virginia, Maryland, DC. We're all barred in New York, but we don't practice really in New York. We do a little bit there, but we're mainly, the bulk of our work is in Virginia. Employment is a large part of what we do. We counsel employers, small to medium-sized employers, on employment issues and try to keep them out of trouble. We also litigate. We do a lot of non-compete litigation. We do review severance agreements, employee agreements, and from time to time, depending on the facts, we'll take an employee side case, but largely employer side. And then we do general civil litigation as well. But I found over the years that employment, like for you, you remember, I'm an employment lawyer. Employment really stands out, and that's, what people think of our firm first for. But we also handle partnership disputes, contract disputes, fighting over money, that kind of thing.
So New York, did you start in New York? Why do you have a New York license on?
So I went to Hofstra Law School, and actually one of the attorneys here also went to Hofstra. We overlapped for a year when we were in law school. So after law school, I grew up in Southern California. I had a job in Southern California after law school. It was 2010. And I had met my now husband in law school, and he is from Virginia. He came back to Virginia. He didn't have a job like many people in 2010, and he wanted to work for the government. And there maybe was some talk of, he had taken the New York bar as his first bar, and there was some talk of maybe going back to New York. And so I took that. I took California first, then New York. And I've kind of just left it idle for many years.
Dang.
Yeah.
So you took California. Oh my God.
California, New York,
Did
DC.
You have to take Virginia too?
Not DC. I waved into DC. I took Virginia because I hadn't been practicing long enough when I moved here. DC was taking too long to wave into, and I was living in Virginia, working for a Virginia firm. And then the firm I worked for before I started my own firm wanted me to take the Maryland bar, the attorney's exam. So I took a written attorney's exam, open book, but it was still a study situation. So yeah, I didn't have to take any of them more than once, but I took 4 bar exams.
Wow. I took 2, which I thought was a lot, but 4 is a lot. And California, I mean, was that a 3-day? That's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it felt the biggest because it was 3 days and because it was my first bar. But honestly, I thought Virginia and New York, with all the distinct subjects, were and I was also working at the same time I was studying to take those. It just felt really, really challenging. But yeah, I mean, first bar, you don't know what you're doing. Everyone's freaking out.
Yeah. I will say, I took Georgia, and then the very next bar I took North Carolina, and I will say the second one it just felt way easier. I mean, the pressure of the first one was gone. I actually slept the night before, it was a lot different. And it was funny, at least on the multi-state portion, there were a lot of the same questions. I mean, they're like exact same questions I
Yeah.
remembered.
Well, they make you
So
dress
yeah.
up in Virginia and they make you put on a
Oh,
suit. So when I took
oh my
Virginia, I felt
gosh.
like a real big kid. Well, look at me. I've
Oh
been
my,
practicing and I'm wearing a suit.
oh my gosh. So the other question. So you're in Northern Virginia, which means you basically, you're a stone throw from DC and Maryland. So you mentioned you got those two. Do you practice in those areas too, or is it you're only in Virginia now?
Yeah, no, I always say the bulk of our cases are in Virginia, but honestly, it's evening out among the three jurisdictions. There's still a lot of work in Virginia, but we represent our clients in DC and Maryland as well. And one of the attorneys here is barred now in Maryland as well. So we do a fair amount of work in Maryland, both in federal and state court.
So another question, with all the federal government layoffs or whatever you want to call it, have you gotten business out of that? Have you seen a jump? I don't know enough. Are there any claims? I don't know.
So we don't do that as of now. And we do a little bit of that work and we're starting to do more, but as we were thinking about taking on more of that work, everything kind of went down and we figured maybe let the people that have been doing it longer. We have great referral sources that do it. So we don't do a ton of work in that area, but certainly the number of calls that we're getting for those individuals with claims has jumped.
Call it the Doge litigation pipeline. Maybe I shouldn't talk, but
Oh,
so
oh,
so I do want
I'm
to.
like, where will this, who will be listening to
Exactly,
this?
exactly. So I do want to circle back. So you graduated in 2010 from law school, which is, I think, the worst year ever, at
It
least
is.
in our
I
lifetime.
agree.
I mean, the crash. So I graduated in '03, and I was at a real estate related type firm. We did some commercial real estate and litigation. And I remember in '08 it started, but
Mhm.
it took a little while for it really to sort of reverberate through everything. And then that 2010 class, I just remember, people pulling offers and all that stuff. What was your experience like graduating in that time?
So I had a boyfriend, as I said, my now husband, and I had a job. And I didn't know if I was going to have a job, but I had summered at a firm in California where I had worked before law school in Southern California. And they waited a bit just to see how things were going to shake out, but eventually extended both me and my good friend who summered with me. It was like a 30 attorney firm. We both had offers. And so as much as I wanted to be in the same place as my now husband, I said, I gotta go. I gotta do this job. So I stayed there for maybe 2.5 years. And eventually, my husband got his job at the State Department. It was clear he was staying here. And so I thought it would be really easy because litigation is just so portable. I'll just take a few more bars. I can build, I can build up in the DMV. So I moved to Virginia and started working here.
So you got lucky. It sounds like, in terms of not getting your job pulled. I've talked to a lot of people who, had their job pulled or whatever. Just a scary time. Just really, and it changed the summer, into whatever summer programs forever. I mean, I remember here in Atlanta before that, there'd be like, 30, 40, 50, 60 person summer
Yeah.
classes at these firms. And then the firms that had 50, then those years it went down to like 10 or
hmm
5. It's like, geez. So yeah, those were scary times. So,
Yeah. I mean, it took a while. It wasn't easy to find a job here either. I think it took a while for the market to get better.
so yeah, what was that like moving back or moving across the state from California? I mean, you had the experience. Did you move and just not have a job, or did you work
I didn't
remotely?
have,
Or
yeah, I didn't have a job. I had tried. I even used a Virginia address, but given the number of years I had been practicing, I was just not quite at the sweet spot to be able to change. Nobody believed I knew what I was doing just yet. And also I hadn't practiced in the area. So I came without a job. I I networked a little bit. I had been coming to visit my husband, or now husband, Taylor's his name. I had been coming to visit Virginia quite a bit every few months. And so I would network a little bit when I was here, but I didn't really know anything about networking. And I didn't really like talking to people. I wasn't as comfortable with it as I am now. And I didn't know anyone, but I just taught myself and learned from others how to network and networked and connected with people. I joined the women's bar in DC, and I think I joined even before I moved here. And pretty early on, met some really great women through that organization. I got a leadership role. I made, the people that I had met as professional contacts, became friends. And I did some contract, doc review for a while. And eventually I got a job at a small firm as a law clerk, not an attorney, because I had no relevant bar license. So I worked at that small firm for about 3 years, got my DC bar, my Virginia bar, and then moved. And I got great experience. It's where I met I'm sure we'll talk about this later, a good friend and former law partner I met at that firm. Then I moved to a larger firm after about 3 years, which was doing insurance defense, like my very first firm out of law school. So I was very much considering myself a defense attorney. And then after that defense job, I was doing a little bit of employment, but also personal injury, med mal defense, great litigation experience. I went to a regional firm because I really wanted to focus on employment and wanted to build out my employment practice. I always wanted to build a book also, which people thought was really weird. I wanted my own clients, even, right when I moved here, right out of, 2, 3 years out of law school. So that's what I was really trying to do at the firm before I started my firm.
I
And
can
I
relate.
started, yeah,
I can relate.
yeah.
Very early on, that's what I tried to do too. Like I just really tried to do that, and I feel like it has served me well ever since.
Yeah.
What about you? So how
Yeah, I
when you
kind of
say
jumped all
people
over, jumped all
when
over the
people
place.
no when people thought when you were trying to develop business, you said people didn't really understand that or whatever. What kind of reactions was it? The partner say, "Hey, don't do that." What do you mean by that?
I don't know that a partner ever told me not to try to develop business. I think everybody thought I was too young. The very first firm that I worked for here in Virginia, it was a small firm, and I think it fed my desire to be a small firm owner because I was in it. I wasn't in a leadership position, but it wasn't very big, and I could hear everything that was going on, and I could see everything that was going on. I looked around. Well, I think I could probably do that someday. I think I could do that. Maybe I won't do this, but the partner there, the owner of that firm, he actually incentivized. He gave a pretty generous origination bonus. Now, as a law firm owner, I think what he was offering was pretty generous, and so I had an interest in developing business, and I was being incentivized. So I tried. It didn't work as a baby attorney, but I tried. I got out there and I tried. When I got to the firms where we had a 2,000 hour billable requirement. My colleagues, some of who they're still my good friends, would say like, "You're crazy. Why are you going to these bar association events? And you know, we have to work 2,000 plus hours. We have to do this. We want to have social life. We were starting families. It's hard to make time to go out to these events. So it wasn't like anyone told me not to. I just think that everybody thought I was weird for focusing my efforts there. I did have partners tell me, which I thought was interesting, that that's great that you're involved in the women's bar in DC. That's good. You should do community work. That's great. It's not going to get you business. But I kept doing it because I liked it and I liked the
Hmm.
people. And it wasn't translating into dollars, but I really liked the people I was working with I eventually was on the board of directors. I met good friends through the organization. The organization's doing great work. I eventually started mentoring younger attorneys. I was at one point a mentee, then I started mentoring. I liked it. But then once I started my own firm, I mean, the women's bar, the people I met from the women's bar, those contacts were my largest referral sources in the beginning because they wanted to support me. So, that's kind of the pushback that I got, you should pitch to companies. You should wait until you're more senior and do it, do it the way that everyone else has always done it.
Well, it's good you didn't listen.
It's been okay.
It's the way I see it. I was very active in the bar, and I sort of go in and out of that around here. And it's part of it is you meet so many people. It makes you're bumping into these people in cases and otherwise, and it just makes the practice a little more enjoyable. It was for me because you get to know these people. I never could say I went to this bar event and I got a case out of it. Yeah, but you're right about the referral source sort of angle, and that's a long play. And so it was always fun and worth it for me as well. So, and they're probably right. If you're a baby lawyer going to pitch to some big company, the chances you land in that are probably, unless you're best friends with somebody in there or it's your cousin or whatever, it's probably going to be hard to get, right?
I mean, yes. And I didn't even know how to, every once in a while, a partner would take me out with a client, not necessarily to pitch. We're working on a case, we're having lunch or something with the client. And I just didn't know how to talk with clients. I thought it had to be this formula, right? I had to say only smart things and only talk about work. And, I just didn't know what I think works for me now. And so it's just awkward. So yeah, I don't think anybody would have hired me. But
You got to get the
at that
reps in,
stage,
right?
yeah.
It's like the stand-up comics that test all their material in the small dive bars before they go on the HBO special, So you said you eventually made it to the employment area. Did you do that on purpose, or had you always sort of wanted to go that way, or was it just sort of a accident or a process for elimination? How did you get there?
I think it was intentional. The focus was intentional. I did a little bit of employment at every job. My very first job out of law school, small firm in Arlington when I first got here. Even when I was doing med mal defense, I did a little bit of employment defense work. It was interesting. The stories were interesting. I mean, salacious. Like the facts are just fun. You're working with companies, you're working with people. There's a human element, no matter what side you're on. It was really interesting to me, and I kept hearing, you have to pick something. You can't just do all the things. And I didn't feel, and I still kind of feel this way, I can explain it a lot better now. But when I went out and I said, I'm at this firm and I do civil litigation, even other lawyers don't, you have to ask more questions. You have to be more specific for people to remember, for it to stick out. Employment, people seem to remember. Everybody kind of understands generally what that means. Now, whether they send the right side to our firm, that's another story, but it seemed to resonate with people more. So it was a genuine interest in the practice area, and for all the reasons I said, and then just it felt like something I could build easier.
Yeah, I can relate to that too, because I started out, I call it business litigation,
Commercial
and what does that
litigation.
mean? It means everything. It's like, well, I do a little of this, a little of that. And it's like, how do you go business develop that? It's just, you just happen to be there when, hey, I got a litigation here, take it. So yeah, I'm with you. So let's talk about starting your firm. So you said you would get sort of caught the bug maybe when you were at some of that smaller firm. What was the thing that finally pushed you over the edge? You're like, I'm doing it.
This is fun. I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore. So there was nothing wrong with the people that I worked with. Nobody was being mean to me at the last firm I was at. It was a great place to work, and I still have good friends there and who have left there. But I just didn't like it. I wasn't doing the work that I wanted to do. Well, I wanted to litigate, so I wasn't litigating as much at that firm. They did a lot of they represented a lot of condo associations, and there was some litigation involved, but it was fine. It just wasn't what I was particularly interested in. And the employment work, I wasn't really getting my hands on either. I was getting some clients, some very small clients myself, a handful, but it just wasn't, doing it for me. I had my oldest daughter, so I have two girls. I had my oldest daughter at the firm right before I went to my last firm. And I had my second daughter at the last firm. And I I just decided I didn't want to do it anymore. I was listening to podcasts and reading books on investing in real estate. Like maybe I'll go do this. Maybe I'll just work part-time and I can bill by the hour and I'll work out of my house and I'll go invest in real estate or something. So yeah, that was really like I just was unhappy. And again, not because anybody was being mean. It wasn't satisfying. I wasn't doing the kind of work that I wanted to do. I didn't really have any say over the type of work I wanted to do. And I felt like when I tried to bring in business or build the practice that I wanted, it was just difficult under someone else's umbrella. Right? I'm not making the rules. I can't say what the minimum retainer is or what kind of clients we're going to take.
It's funny. I had a similar thing too. I feel like almost every lawyer, there's some people that were like born to be a lawyer. It's like they're born to be a lawyer. That was not me, I don't think. And there came a time where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so then it's like, maybe it's the firm's wrong. So if I switch firms and then you're there and you're in the honeymoon period and you're like, this is great. But then you get back to, you're like, I don't know. They're like, maybe I'm going to go do something else, not law. And I sort of did that for a while. And I have found for me, falling into this practice area that I have and having my own firm, it's like I love that part of it. I just love it. And so I assume you sort of found the place, you tried the real estate for a while and you said, all right, I'm going to go back out and practice law. Or what led to that? How did that happen?
Turns out you don't have to listen to a podcast or read a book to know that you need a lot of money up front usually to invest in real estate. So that was really not something that I was in a position to do, which is why I thought, okay, well, let me work a little bit and figure out if this is something that I can even like break into the world network. I don't know, figure out how to get in small and build. So I decided to leave. I had, let's see, how old was it was December 2020, not December, January 2020 is when I officially opened. I decided in December. So I had a very small baby. I had been back from maternity leave for a few months. My daughter was born in June 2019. I didn't have any clients that had ongoing litigation. I had a handful of employment counseling clients that didn't have any issues. The one litigation client that I thought I might be able to stay on with, it didn't work out. But I did it, and I was just me by myself. I was subleasing a office, which is actually downstairs from where I am now, from a really good friend who did employment law. She had a lot of work. She said, I have this office for lease. You can lease it for me. And also, I might have some overflow that you can do. And also, she was somebody that was a mentor to me. So it seemed like the perfect opportunity. So I started my firm in January 2020. I didn't know it was end of January. I had no idea what was about to hit in March. I started setting up coffees. I did an announcement. I didn't have any work. I was just trying to get work. So real smart decision. And then COVID. So I had to switch the whole game plan.
Yeah. So take me through that. You start with no clients, COVID hits. I mean, what'd you do? I mean, I'm really curious. How did you weather that?
Well, let me just say, like, between the time that I moved here and I started my own firm, I had my kids. I had gotten married. I had a husband who works for the government. He had what we thought a very stable job. Let's not comment on stability in this day, where we are now. But at the time, it was stable. I wouldn't have been able to do it if we didn't have one person, with a stable job at home. So I could survive a little bit without making a lot of money, but not that long. The name of the game for me was networking, right? That's what I had done up until that point. It hadn't resulted in a ton of clients, but that's all I really know how to do. So I just switched everything to virtual. Like I didn't know what Zoom was. I think I maybe had taken one or two video depositions for experts that were not local. That was basically all I knew about video anything. So I think I posted on LinkedIn early on, does someone want to have a virtual coffee with me? I don't understand Zoom. Like, let me know. So I connected with people that I already knew. I asked for more connections. I made a real effort to build out my network in Northern Virginia. I'd worked in Northern Virginia basically the whole time I'd been here, but my network was very DC heavy. So I started making a real effort to get to know the employment bar in Northern Virginia better, get to know other Northern Virginia lawyers. I know that's another piece of advice people give. Don't, why waste time knowing people that do what you do? They're not going to give you work. I also think that's not true. I get a ton of referrals from people that do exactly what I do, and I send a ton of work to people that do exactly what I do. But that was kind of my game plan, get to know the attorneys in the area, let them know I'm on my own, what I do, how I can help. And a lot of people didn't have an employment lawyer to send things to. So slowly I would get things. It wasn't instant. And I, between that and the woman that I was leasing the office space from giving me some work, and she brought me into a litigation at one point, my practice started growing. I had a very part-time, it was just me. Pretty early on, I brought a very part-time employee in to just help with clerical, all virtual, just to help with organizing my files and everything. And once I got busy enough, I realized I couldn't handle litigation without having some help. So I brought on a law clerk, a temporary summer law clerk. That was pretty early on too. And in doing that, I realized one, I'm probably never going to be able to. Well, one, I was starting to like my firm because I had control over the cases that I was taking and I was getting more interesting work. But also, I wouldn't be able to grow it if I wanted to stay in it and not go into that real estate thing without bringing people on. But in employing the law clerk for the summer, even though she wasn't in the same space as me, I started to kind of envision what a firm could be like that I actually wanted to work for, right? Maybe I could make the firm that I actually wanted to work for, and I could do the things for, to make the culture the way that I had wanted it at the firms that I was at before. So that's when this new vision started evolving for me. Oh, maybe I'll stay a lawyer. Maybe I'll do, more interesting cases. Maybe I'll hire people eventually. So, yeah.
That's cool. It's happened to me too. It's like you get these ups and downs and you get reinvigorated for whatever reason. So that's good. So eventually you had a partner at some point, right? Or you brought a partner on or,
Yeah. So I
um,
started off by myself, and about a year and a half in, 2021, yeah, a year and a half in, I had to think about the timeline. A friend of mine who I'd worked with at the very first firm I worked at when I moved to Virginia, we had been talking, we worked together at that small firm. We were good friends after that. We stayed in touch. We often talked about just practice management and how we would do it and how it might work. And eventually those conversations turned into, well, maybe someday. And that someday was, summer of 2021 is kind of when that came together. So she came on, we did, a complete rebrand and re-announcement of the firm. So that was great. It was another, big marketing push. She had a similar practice to mine a little bit, but she also did corporate work. So I don't do purely corporate work, and nobody at the firm does. So it complemented, I thought, what we're doing. I feel like I left out an important detail there, but that's how that started. I mean, we had conversations about just practice management that led to, well, maybe we could do this someday. And her firm was changing a little bit. They were merging. She didn't want to go in that direction, was what I gathered. And we decided to give it a try and partner up.
and you don't have to go through the details, but eventually you guys went your separate ways.
Yes.
So how long were you guys together?
I feel like I haven't been at my firm that long. I mean, it was only a little bit over 5 years ago, but I think officially the official like launch of solo practice again, or just me, was January 2024. So I'm terrible at
Okay,
math. I guess that was
so
a
you weren't
longer
together.
time than I thought it was.
So again, I'm not asking you to get into too many details here, but partnerships they're hard. I mean, they're hard for lots of reasons. And sometimes what seems to make sense on paper turns out not to make sense. So lots of reasons why things, may not work out. And sometimes it's amicable and everything's great. It's just like, why is it, let's just go our separate ways. Sometimes it's not. So you don't have to get into all that, but looking back, for those out there that might be thinking about taking on a partner, maybe they're solo or whatever, do you have any advice that, looking back, or maybe if you ever look for a partner again,
Too
what
soon.
advice would you give to yourself? Some people say don't do it, which is fair
Uh,
too, but
I only say too soon because it felt like it was so much work to merge the practices together. And then it was also so much work to unwind. And it happened in what I thought was a very short period of time. Now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe it wasn't that short. It was just a lot of work. So what would I do? What would I do differently? Well, what advice do I have? We talked a lot. Like we talked about how it would work, and I thought we had a lot of conversations. In retrospect, maybe we didn't have deep enough conversations, or because we were friends, we both didn't, what everybody does, what you tell your clients not to do, right? Get everything in writing and make sure there's a plan. When you're friends with someone, you trust someone, you don't necessarily go through that process or the process as strictly. I don't know how else to say it. So maybe I would have asked more questions. Maybe I would have talked more about, where do we see this going? Are there any things that would be just non-negotiables for you if the firm did this? Okay, I honestly can't remember when we had that conversation. Like you wouldn't want to be a partner anymore. We talked about the kinds of work that we did, and if any one of our practice areas wasn't a good mix, or if any one of our clients that we had necessarily be a good look to the other one's practice. But yeah, I don't know if there's like partnership, like premarital counseling, but the partnership version, like maybe I would have done that. I'm sure
Yeah.
there is, right? Coaching, we call it coaching, right? And I was working with a coach, so we did, like, at least on my end, I would talk with him and I would kind of get checklists and things together and I would bring it to her and we would go through that. But maybe it would have been beneficial to talk with someone together, or someone to like facilitate a conversation and talk about the things that you might not be expecting or anticipating.
Real quick, thanks for listening. If you're getting any value out of this podcast, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. It would really mean a lot to me. Now back to the show. So you mentioned you had a coach. I love coaches, so I've got a bunch. I've always had them.
Same.
Yeah. So tell me about your experience with coaches. Is it something that you've always done, or how did you get introduced to the sort of the coaching world, I'll call it the business coaching world? And what's your experience been?
Yeah, I think I've always liked the idea of having a coach. I didn't start having coaches until I had my own firm. This particular coach I reached out to him because I also in 2020, 2021, finally got diagnosed with ADHD, which I suspected that was a thing for me for years, but I was in denial about it. But once you have your own firm, you start getting busy. There's no structure. You are the structure. I realized very quickly that I needed to figure out how to manage this if I was going to make it at all, never, not to mention be successful. So I started working with one coach because he had business experience, but also he had experience. He branded himself as an ADHD coach. So that's how the coaching started. But since I've taken on many a coach, like whatever problem you might be having or area of growth you can imagine, there is a coach for that. But I think it's really valuable. Some people hear it, just the word coach, and that's it. They don't want to hear anything else. But I feel like it's been really important for my practice. And they're not in your business, but it feels, you have a part-time kind of partner or someone who's invested in your business and your success.
And
Obviously, because you can't pay them if you're not successful, but they are actually they are invested.
Well, the thing I like about it too is they've seen a lot of stuff. Presumably you're not the only person they're coaching, so they've seen a lot. They can bring different perspective, and I mean, you know how it is. I mean, it's like we were in that room a few weeks ago, and it's like sometimes it didn't really happen that time, but I've been in rooms like that where before somebody gets up to say what their problem is, they're telling somebody exactly what to do, and then they get up and their problem's exactly the same, and you're like, you need somebody else to tell you sometimes, right? Even though you know deep down, sometimes you just need somebody to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about how you get your cases now. Is it still heavily sort of referral based type marketing, or what sorts of things do you do?
Still a lot of referrals. I have 2 more senior attorneys now, which is new as of last year for the firm, who also want to build, they're not expected to, but I understand that they want to build business and I want to support them in doing that. So they are doing their own versions of business development. Because I have two more senior attorneys, I needed them and I still need them. But at the time, like we were drowning in work, but to keep that workflow sustained, it needed to be more than just, my one-off coffees. There's only so many one-on-ones I can have. So I actually got introduced to a paid networking group. Gasp. I thought it was appalling that anybody would ask me to pay this much for a networking group. I probably should have said that out loud, but I just thought, well, I started a mastermind group. It wasn't a true mastermind in retrospect now that I've been to a true mastermind, but it had some mastermind elements. I've started multiple of my own groups, which has been great for relationship building and networking. And so to think about paying and the time commitment of this particular group, which is provisors, oh no, I can't do this. But the person who asked me if I would guest at a meeting was somebody that I really respected and has built a firm and is established in the community. I thought, you know what? If he's doing it, I'm going to give it a shot. And I went in and, meeting one, I was like, okay, I get it. Like it's a little bit salesy. It's a little bit too structured for me, but I think I'm okay with it. So I joined, and pretty soon thereafter, because it was new in our area, I had the opportunity to form the area's attorney group. So there's multiple chapters within our region, and then there's different professionals in each chapter, and then all of the attorneys are invited to participate in an attorney group. And since my referrals are almost all from attorneys, a little bit different now since I've been in this group, I thought, oh, this is perfect. This is what I'm gonna do. These are my people. I love talking with other lawyers anyway. I learned the most from doing that. So I've just continued in that group since 2021, and our region has grown. So I do get a lot of work from that group, particularly the attorney subgroup, because we have such a close group and we have a really robust listserv. I can't believe I'm saying those words out loud. It sounds so so nerdy, but it's just, we have like a very active group that's just constantly referring business back and forth and supporting one another. So yeah, I've gotten some work from that organization. I feel like it's a really good investment of time. And again, I did it for the networking, but I made friends. Like that's what always happens, right? You're forming relationships with people. I've made pretty good friends from that organization as well. It seems to be a good, like they've kind of figured out how to put together the people that want to help other people. Obviously, we all would like to grow our businesses, but it seems to be a solid group of most of the people that are in the group nationwide want to help one another and support one another in addition to build their own businesses. So it's been good.
You mentioned paying to be in these groups. So I've formed my own groups. I've been in free groups. I've been in, all these various types of groups, and my, the free ones, they're good because you sort of have some, well, at least if you're sort of creating it, you have a lot of input on who's in the groups and the curation of the group. So that's good. But when you're not paying money, the commitment level is very, very low. Like they just skip meetings, and sometimes writing a big check or just writing a check, you're like, okay, if I'm paying, I'm going to make sure I go to the meeting. So sometimes I think the payment is actually what makes it good. And maybe it's a sort of a filtering mechanism too. The non-committals, they're not going to stroke the check, or I guess the lower value contributors, sort of get filtered out maybe. I don't know.
Well, every once in a while, there is somebody who will just, join, or their firm pays for it and they don't attend, or they don't have time and they don't put the effort in for whatever reason. And I feel like you're not going to get a lot out of it unless you put the time into it. So it is a good group. I just think I don't suggest it. I kind of tell people, if you're not going to I'll tell you exactly how much time I put in first year and this year. I track it all, but these are the things I'm doing. These are the things I'm not doing. If you're not willing to do at least most of what I'm doing, which I think is not the max of what you can do in this group, you probably shouldn't join, because you're going to be disappointed your group's going to be disappointed. Yeah, it's an investment.
You definitely get what you put in and get out what
Yeah.
you put in. So you have some sort of, I guess you said you helped form the group. Are you still leading it or have you backed off of that?
No, I'm still leading what they call an affinity group within it's divided by regions throughout the country. So our region is the DC Metro, which encompasses, I hope I'm not saying this wrong. I think it encompasses Baltimore, at least my attorney group, it encompasses Baltimore and Northern Virginia. So there's multiple home groups, and then I am an affinity group, the attorney affinity group, and there's a women's affinity group, there's different affinity groups, but I lead the lawyers affinity group and still lead the affinity group.
So we got a bunch of chapters here in Atlanta. Is it so the lawyer? So if I'm in a lawyer affinity group, do they have? Is this nationwide? Is it like a nationwide Zoom, or
Yeah.
is it? How does that work?
Yeah, so my lawyer affinity group is for my region, but Atlanta has its own. I know the leaders for most of the regions, but they do have nationwide groups, and you can guest at however many other groups that you want to guest at. I don't do as much of that nationwide because my practice is pretty regional. Technically, can I do, federal employment litigation in other states? Sure, but I would get local counsel and, it's not what I'm doing right now. But for those attorneys that can practice nationwide easily, I think it's a great opportunity. I'm sure there's a ton more that people could get out of the organization by guesting all over the country. At a minimum, just guesting at the attorney groups. Not every single region has an attorney group, but once they get big enough, they have an attorney group.
And like this is another example. I tell people, younger lawyers, and they're like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I'm like, "Well, everything works. You just gotta. I mean, you just gotta find one you like that you'll commit to and stay consistent with, and just really go after it. Whether it's getting in a group or running ads or whatever it is, speaking, writing, everything works. It's just really a matter of how much you put into it and what you make
Totally.
of it. So other than provisors, is that your main sort of thing? Other than probably local networking too. I mean, are you?
I have a bunch of bar associations that I'm involved in leadership positions. I feel like if I rattled them off and I forget one, I'll feel bad. But I do a lot with the Virginia Bar Association's labor and employment section. They have a really great conference every year. It's all the all the employment lawyers in Virginia on both sides, and it's just a great group to be a part of. So organizations like that. I'm involved in the Fairfax Bar Association here, but nothing. Provisors is probably the biggest thing that biggest non non-lawyer thing that I do is lawyers and non-lawyers.
So another thing that's always fascinated me to hear from other law firm owners is sort of the growth that they go through. So you started out on your own, sort of figuring it out in the middle of COVID, but now you said you've got two attorneys now that are with you. What was that like moving to sort of that management or leadership role from when it's just you? And how'd you learn how to do it?
Stay tuned. I don't know that I've learned how to do it quite yet. I'm working on it. So this is something I talk about with my other law firm owner friends a lot. There are law firm owners that they're doing the work, right? And they're not managing. It's mostly just them. There's law firm owners that run the business almost exclusively and aren't really practicing. And then there's a group of us that are in between. I feel like the in between is really hard because depending on what is happening, depending on which case is blowing up, you're not, it's hard to do the day-to-day management. So it's a work in progress. I will say with the two attorneys that are more, the two current attorneys that are here that are more senior attorneys, it's given me more time to focus on the business and work on management and systems and all the things that I had been ignoring for a really long time. How did I learn? I'm still learning. I read books, I listen to podcasts, I talk to other attorneys, find out what they've done, what worked for them, what didn't work. I talk to my attorneys, or the staff, like what is this working? Is this not working? I'm not perfect. I never claim to be perfect. So I encourage people giving me feedback. So it's really just it's a work in progress. But books, podcasts, talking to people,
I'm
coaches.
with you. It's hard. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, you know, when I before I started mine, I worked at 3 different firms, and each one of them had been around for a long time. So I joined 2 of them as an associate, and you just sort of plug in. And they weren't huge firms, but they were big enough, and they'd been around for 20 something years each. And then I joined the last one. I joined as a partner, and it was the same way. It'd been around 20 years, and you know, I tell people it's like you want something, someone else does it for you for the most part. So it's really easy. But then when you start your own, you got to do everything. It's like, you know, and the example I always give, you got, you know, you need a stapler and you're like, oh shit, there's no stapler. So then you got to go buy the stapler. And that's where it starts. And then all of a sudden you hire your first employee, and hiring is pretty damn hard too. Like just doing the job post and getting them in there and interviewing, figuring out who the right person is. Then you got to onboard them. You got to learn that. So, you know, you make mistakes every time. It gets a little better every time. Then you got to manage them, all the stuff that no one ever taught you that taught me at any of my prior law firms. And then you're just sort of like figuring it out.
I mean, even if you're managing people at a law firm, right, at a partner level, and even associate, you have staff, it's not the same, right?
It's not the same.
It's the beginning, but it's not the same.
And, you know, I was one of these people, and I know lots of them, but like partners at big established law firms, for the most part, are not very good managers. I'll just leave it at that. And they've not been trained. They might be able to boss people around on their cases. Maybe they're nice, maybe they're not, but they're not really truly managers or development of people. Usually, there are exceptions. There are exceptions out there, people listening, but
No, I agree with you.
yeah,
And I've been on the other side of that. It's so easy to say like, oh, why can't you get this right? Why aren't you, investing in me the way that I think you should be, or the other employees? Why can't you manage the workflow? Like, why is this person so busy and I need more work all the time or whatever, and on the other side of it, it's really hard, even with just three of us, 2 attorneys dividing the work. So it's hard.
So what's your method now? So you're trying to work more on the business, but you're also still you're deep in the legal work. So do you have like, I take a day off and do this, or what's your approach?
Is that a thing? Can I do that? No one told me I could take days off.
Well, no, days off from the legal work to then do the work on the business. That's what I mean.
No.
Or you can go to the beach and just, chill. You can do that too.
So some of my coaching, some of the programs I'm in, similar to probably what you're in, require you to be off-site and go to, 2-day sessions and work on the business. So that's kind of forced working on the business. Ideally, in the perfect world, I'm blocking some time every week, and it is inconsistent. Like I did this week, I blocked some time on my calendar to work on business related things. I work with someone, I have a part-time kind of a fractional operations finance person. So having her helps and also forces me to block time to work on the business, because if I don't answer her, she's just working hard and I'm the bottleneck, and that's not cool. But yeah, I mean, it's again, work in progress. I'm trying to fit the managing the business and working on the business in with working, like doing the work. The issue for me is I really like the work because I'm, this version, this stage in my career, I'm doing the kind of work that I want to do and I find really exciting. So it's really hard for me to not be involved in all the stuff, but especially if it's a case that's, a super interesting topic to me. So I'm working on letting go a little bit.
Well, that's a fair point. And that's, all these people are out there saying, you got to become the CEO, you got to, stop doing the legal work and blah, 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 blah. But if that's what you like doing, it's your firm, do it the way you want to do it. And then you just get somebody else to do that stuff. Right?
Maybe. I mean, we can have a whole nother discussion about like, do we actually like it, or have we just been conditioned to think that litigation is fun? But yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think that I need to 100%, not do it. If I want to do some of this work, I just have to find a way to still working on it, be able to do some of the work, be able to run the business, or have people on my team that can help run the firm smoothly, and then also, still have a personal life and see my friends, see my family. They're important.
I mean, that's the thing, like for me, do I want to do nothing but legal work all the time? No. But there are parts of it that I do. I mean, there's certain strategic and whatever type decisions that, and it's fun to like pick a strategy and see it work. You're like, yeah, we just kicked their ass. So it's kind of fun, You don't necessarily get that on the business side. Maybe you do. I don't know. Well, so shifting, as you sit here, you've been at it for a while. Where do you see your firm going? What's the vision for the firm? Have you thought that far ahead?
Yes, I have. Well, this year, I don't know if you've read the book Vivid Vision. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But one of my groups
What's the
had
book
a
again?
Vivid Vision.
Oh yeah, Vivid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't read the book, but I did. I haven't finished the book, but I did work on core values for the firm. So I kind of I didn't kind of, I put those together and I messaged those to the rest of the team earlier this summer. So that was really great. That's the first time I did anything like that. Where do I see the firm? Probably just on the same trajectory, doing the same type of work, just a little bit bigger and having more capacity to do more, because there are these causes and cases we want to get involved in, and to be able to do that, we need more bodies and more resources. So I would like to grow a little bit more. I can't say I want to be hundreds of attorneys, but I think we could be, a little bit bigger and do more good.
I've seen that like with my practice. I feel like I've gotten looks at some, over the years, some pretty big matters just because of my expertise or because of my name in the market here. But I didn't land them. And I think it's because they were going to be big. And at the time it was like just me and maybe one other. So I think there is some truth to that. There's some matters that you just got to have a bench. Whether you really need it or not, there's a perception, I think. So
Yeah.
for sure on that. So on Vivid Vision, there's I'll send it to you if you hadn't seen it, but I think it was before he wrote the book. There's a video of a presentation Cameron Harold gave on the Vivid Vision. It's awesome. It's incredible. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It's an old, you can find it on YouTube, but I'll send it to you. It's really good. So we've talked a lot. If you weren't practicing law and you could not do real estate, what would you be doing?
Yeah, I still can't do real estate. Man, I don't know. There was a time when I also wanted to be a coach. So maybe something along those lines, maybe coach or consultant or something, working with I would still be in the world, right? I'd still be in the legal world, just not actually doing the work, working with small firm owners, probably.
Yeah.
It's my favorite
All
thing in
right.
the world when someone tells me they want to start a law firm. It makes me happy. So
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you a chance to be a coach. Anybody's out there thinking about starting a firm, what advice would you give to them?
So what I did is talk to as many people as you possibly can who have done it. And now, listen to the podcast interviews with the people that have done it, but get to know the people that have done it and see what worked for them and what didn't. And you don't have to do everything that they did. But I think that was the best thing that I did for myself coming in. It's not like it gave me the playbook, but it gave me some things to think about and some things to try. And then those people have become kind of my advisory board throughout the years. So get out there, make friends.
And keep asking the questions and keep making the friends, right? It never ends.
Yeah, there's always something to learn. Yes.
Yeah. Roya, I appreciate you coming on. It's been real fun. It's been fun getting to know you, and thanks for coming on. So for people out there that want to find you or get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Our firm's website, vasseghilaw.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Probably LinkedIn's the easiest. So just my name.
And we'll put all that in the show notes as well for people. So again, thanks for coming.
Thank you. This was awesome. It was fun to be here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Founding Partner Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can also connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn and check out the show notes with links to resources mentioned throughout our discussion by visiting www.lawfirmgc.com. We'll see you next time for more origin stories and insights from successful law firm founders.